Are live. Good morning, Internet. I'll make sure that the stream is working correctly, and we'll talk a little bit about free speech on college campuses and the topic I was just blogging about this week, because the two are undoubtedly linked. So again, I just want to make sure this is working, get a few people in. If you let me know you can hear me, I always appreciate that. All right. So, earlier this week, Donald Trump announced that he would be signing an executive order that would deny federal funding to universities that don't allow for free speech. Now, of course, that's a tricky topic, because how do you determine who's allowing free speech and who's not? And the problem of limiting speech is so pervasive on college campuses that what is the comparison point? Sorry about that, a little bit of an echo. What is the benchmark? There you go, let's get that right. But across the country, especially over the last few years, we have seen a real crackdown of free speech on college campuses, and it comes in a variety of ways. It could be in terms of safe spaces, where you have these areas on college campuses in which certain strains of thought are not prohibited. Generally, thought that tends to be on the right side of the political spectrum. And the justification given for these safe spaces is that there are certain disadvantaged groups. The irony, of course, being the mass deplatforming of right-wing thinkers across the country means that the truly disadvantaged group is the right-wing thinker, because it doesn't just stop at the safe spaces. The attack on free speech in college campuses, it goes directly into the classroom. And I went to college, and anyone that's gone to college knows that if you have a certain point of view within a college classroom, you are likely to be punished in terms of your grades, because the professors on college campuses, due to an ideology subverting the university, are so overwhelmingly left-wing that people with right-leaning political views are incentivized to hide their political leanings, to hide their actual perspective when they're in university classrooms. Because, for instance, if you're talking about the topic of abortion in classroom, and you know, and you're overwhelmingly likely to have this, but you know that your professor leans politically left, the professor's likely very emotional, very intolerant of the point of view of others. So you know that if you write a paper in defense of a pro-life position, you're likely to have your paper marked down. So it's not just, there's safe spaces and people with right-leaning political views, they can't say what they have to say in this little area because, I don't know, there's a disadvantaged group. Maybe it's a group that involves people that are homosexual. Maybe it's a group that involves people that are African American. It doesn't just stop there, and it's outrageous enough at that point, because the point of a university, the objective of a university, should not be to shelter people from ideas, but to have young minds engage in the process of thinking. Because when you engage in the process of thinking rather than what to think, that's when intellectual growth takes place. Because truth can't be told. You can't tell someone what truth is. Truth has to be discovered. And you can only discover truth by a close examination of all potential avenues that a person can take. But what's happening on college campuses is people are being told, this is how you should think, this is what you should think. And any other point of view should be rejected. And if someone tries to present a different point of view to you, You should scream at them. You should yell. You should report them to authority. Well, this is indoctrination because education involves dialectic. It involves the process of one person reaching out to another person and talking about points of view, talking about perspective, and attempting to discover truth. And if you can't agree, that's fine. That's why you engage in debate. That's why you engage in rhetoric. And each time you do that, you get a little bit better at it. Just think of 2 years ago, I couldn't speak in front of a camera, and now I can very comfortably I could do this for a long period of time if I wanted to. I won't keep you too long this morning. So it's not just the safe space culture of colleges, and it's not just people being incentivized to self-censor when they're in the classroom, knowing that if they write a paper with their right-leaning political ideology, that paper can be marked down. It doesn't just stop there, because it then goes to speeches on college campuses. How often have we seen universities throughout the country? The number one university that comes to mind is of course in leftist California, UC Berkeley, which ironically used to be known as a center for free speech. But if you have a right-leaning political ideology, whether you're Mike Cernovich or Lawrence Southern, or it doesn't really matter who it is or whether you like that person, if you attempt to hold a political rally to speak to like-minded people about your positions, you are very likely to be protested. Many universities have asked these speakers or have deplatformed these speakers because the people that disagree with them can't handle it emotionally. But if a university was actually focused on education, then for that reason they would have more and more speakers with different point of views. And as part of classroom assignments, they would encourage people to sit down and listen to others that think differently speak. And then they could write a paper, a critique of what they heard and why they disagree. And you know what? When they do that, you might just learn something and find out, yeah, you know what? You actually agree with that person that you thought you disagreed with. But that would be if the purpose of universities was to focus on education. Got my big old milk jug here today. But the purpose of universities is not education, it's indoctrination. So not only do the college campuses not encourage people, their students, to go sit down and listen to others that think differently, but they look the other way when people with right-leaning political views, I don't want to say conservatives because it's not just that, right-leaning political views attempt to talk on college campuses. Universities look the other way when these speakers and the attendees are met with violence. And we have seen groups like Antifa all over the country engage in intimidation and violence, people being hit with bike locks, people having jars of urine thrown at them, pepper spray, cars being lit on fire, and the universities do nothing to step in against this violence. Because the truth is, the school system wants you to be intimidated. They want you to feel bullied and to feel scared. And that gets me to the real point of what I'm talking about. That although this executive order might be a nice thing, the true irony of the school system, which is always having initiatives, nationwide initiatives, community initiatives, to stand up against bullying, is that if you disagree with the ideology of the people running the universities in America, and this trickles down to the schools, the grade schools, they want you to feel intimidated. They want you to be afraid to speak your mind on a college campus if you have right-leaning political views. That's why they don't stop Antifa when they show up to college campuses and physically intimidate right-leaning speakers. And this shows what has been happening in our school system. Our school system is indoctrinating people into a victim mentality. They want you to be a victim. They want you to be weak. And this week on my blog on Steemit, I wrote an article titled, "Why You Should Introduce Your Children to Violence." Now, if you want to read that article, which I strongly suggest you do, you can go follow my page. It's in the notes below. Classical Learner on Facebook. I posted the article. And also follow in the link below my Classical Learner YouTube channel, which will more and more become the focus of where I post, because I'm going to be transitioning to focus more and more on grassroots change and how we could raise our children to make them stronger. And what I wrote in the article is that the school system, which claims to stand up against bullying, is actually the primary enabler of bullying. Because we know, anyone that's faced a bully knows that the greatest deterrent of bullying is to stand up and defend yourself. Because a bully does not want to go after someone that is willing to fight back. Yet if you look at our school system, children are punished for the act of physically defending themselves against a bully. If a bully does something to you and your child steps up and hits that bully in the face, what happens? The school system punishes your child. The child is taught, no, if you are facing a bully, you need to outsource your troubles. You need to go to authority and say this is happening. And the result? Nothing. So what? The bully gets in trouble by the school, but they don't stop, because the greatest deterrent to a bully is punching him in the face. So instead, you go to the school, you report the bully, and the school punishes the bully, and then the bullying continues. And in the modern world with social media, this is more dangerous than ever before, because a child can't get away from their bullies. They go home and they're being bullied on social media. And because of that, the rates of suicide in America have gone up and up and up. And the last study from 1999 to 2016 showed that suicide rates have gone up in every state but one, outlier, Nevada. And the suicide rates among high school students, especially high school girls, by the way, it's astronomical. It's up 15%. And 2.4 out of every 100 high school students have reported to attempting suicide. So bullying is not the only factor, but it certainly contributes. And by schools not allowing and encouraging people that are bullied to confront and, if necessary, physically engage their bullies, schools are the biggest enablers of bullies, and they are teaching children to be in a permanent state of victim mentality. And this goes all the way up until when they get to college and Antifa shows up and people are intimidated and they are unable to defend themselves. So please check out Classical Learner. The link is in the description notes below. On Facebook, where you can find the article I posted, my blog, in which I wrote about the importance of parents introducing their children to violence, whether it's at 2 years old, enrolling them in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, shortly after that getting them in karate, shortly after that getting them into wrestling, having them engage in competition, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, physical competition, so that your child has the confidence necessary to engage a bully. And a child that will engage a bully at the grade level will have the confidence to ask for a raise when they're 30 years old at their job. A child that will engage a bully in middle school will have the confidence to deal with authority in the corporate space when they're 30 years old. Will have the confidence to engage their college university teacher who attempts to intimidate them out of sharing their point of view. Our society claims to be against bullying, but our institutions do everything possible to enable it by not doing the one thing that deters it, encouraging the bullied to refuse to be victims and confront their bullies head on, whether that's verbally and, if necessary, physically. Please share this link. Please follow my YouTube page, Classical Learner. It's in the description notes below. I will eventually be posting only on that page, so this is my transition. This is my pivot. I'm going to be talking a lot about the education system. Follow my page on Facebook, follow my blog, and please share this link, especially to anyone that has young children. As always, power to the individual. Long live liberty.